about a lot about the negative side of us as individuals and how that negativity was in our lives automatically. When we, in fact, as I was talking about it just today, if you really want to know why we have all the trouble in the world today and why people can't get along, the answer is simple: sin. That's the long, that's the short of it. And then you can add all the other stuff you want, the variables, but that's the bottom line. It's just pure, plain, old-fashioned. When sin came into the world, it upset everybody and every relationship, upset us amongst ourselves and with our God. And of course, because of that, we needed a Savior. And that's why Jesus came along. So now, this next section, we're going to look at relationships. And as always, I want to show you the negative side. And the reason I do that again is because I feel like if you understand where you are and the reason for it, it makes it easier to build positively from there. In other words, we have a benchmark that we can move away from. So we're going to share about our four core subjects. And of course, the first one is adaptation. And what that means is we're going to work toward understanding one another. That's important. I have to admit that I was married to the same lady 57 years, and on the day she died, I really didn't understand one of our problems. And I'm supposed to be someone who understands, see? But I adapted to the old girl because we made it 57 years. We're going to talk about accommodation, which is adjusting to one another. We're going to talk affirmation, and that's effectively living with each other, because we're building a foundation. So as we go through each step, it makes our relationships just that much stronger. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about affection. And tonight we're going to deal with that a little bit, but basically the world has the wrong view of affection. And so what I want to do is share what it really is, what it really isn't, and how we can best express ourselves and live together pretty successfully. So what we're going to do is, first thing we ask ourselves, are we issues or relationship based? That's a pretty important question. Stop and ask yourself, what's my relationship based on? Issues? Everybody has them, but is that what it's based on? And so, you see my circle of relationship there. That's an issue-based relationship. See where the issues are? They're inside the circle. And do you see what it's doing? It's crowding out you. That's issue-based. When that other person is crowded out, here's what happens to you. We're focused for failure. The relationship is going to fail. That's the long and the short of it, if that's your focus. So if we do that, you see what happens? All that's left is me. And now we have all these issues rotating around our life, and they're the focus, and that's all we can think of. And a me-focused relationship is not what we call a relationship at all, is it? All we're left is the issues surrounding us, and they never seem to leave. So again, I want to say change begins with recognizing the current state of our relationship and then evaluating our willingness to shift from focusing on issues to prioritizing the relationship. And it's a different way of living. So This is obviously the wrong stage. What do you got? You're sorry. The truth of it is most of us will change our relationships when we like the person we're changing for, feel cared for by that person, and understand why that person would like us to change. Now, disregard the fact that I said why, and I'm going to tell you why. So each of us, we really feel capable of change if we believe that the change does not imply a loss of power or position. And you don't have to lose either one just to change your position, okay? Because I'm going to demonstrate to you, I never, ever look for who is wrong. When I counsel, I don't care who's to blame. I'm issue oriented, see? I want to know what the issue is. We can resolve that without assigning blame. But as soon as we get into the blame game, then we lose. So, again, we want to evaluate the need and where we are, and then begin the process of change. So, what we want to do is decide what to change and do it decisively. Here is a life rule. If you break it, I'm going to fine you. Rule number 1. This is rule number 1. Never ask why. You see what the Tasmanian devil is doing there? You see that? Why? I remember vividly asking that young man right there, why did you do that? I don't know. Why? Don't get why out of your vocabulary, and also the word if. Because if you say, if you do that, well, of course they did that. You wouldn't be asking. If I did that, well, they obviously feel like you did, so why even go there? Take those two words out of your vocabulary, because what it's doing is this. It's asking for a reasonable answer to an unreasonable question. Why is unreasonable? It will never get you usable information. What do? We have 4 words coming up here that will get you usable information. First one, we ask who. Because what does who do? It determines the individuals who are involved. Second thing, what? That determines basic information. Well, what happened? That's what a policeman does if he investigates a crime or an accident. What happened? What do you think happened? He never says, if you did that, or why did you do that? See, that doesn't give him usable information. The other thing is, when? That determines the order of the events. Where? That's the place. That's the patterns. And then the last one is how. How was that accomplished? How did that take place? Do you see that? If you ask these questions, you're going to get usable, non-threatening information. By the way, this works for everybody. I taught my grandkids this stuff. I never asked them why. I knew what they were going to say if I asked why, because I'd already been through it. You see what I'm saying? And in every relationship, no matter where you are, ask these 4 things. Who, what, when, where, and how. They're lifesaver, they're non-threatening. And you can build a relationship on information like that. So what we're going to be doing is we're changing from adversaries to allies. That's where we're going with this, see? So we're building foundation. Now, we're going to base all of this on love, all right? Now, when we talk about love, we're talking about agape. That's a condition that exists when another person's well-being are more important than my own. You got that? There's no feeling involved with this at all. Not as a motivational thing. What we're wanting to do, what is best for the other person. Now, you say, well, if I do that for you, what about me? Well, if you're both doing that, you can see how you're going to flourish in your relationship. I'm doing what's best for you, you're doing what's best for me, and boy, we're having a good time doing that. I want to illustrate tonight from some movie clips that I had, and it turns out that they didn't turn out very well, at least on this screen, and YouTube didn't like them. So I'm going to tell you about them. And this first one comes from The Family Man. Now, I don't know if you know the story. This fella, a successful businessman, he's making money hand over fist. He's living high and wild. And all of a sudden, he is transported into another lifestyle altogether. He wakes up in the morning and finds out he's got a wife and 2 kids, and he's working for his father-in-law selling tires. He doesn't think much of that, and he's totally bewildered, and all the time he can remember the previous job. So, as it turns out in the story, he comes across the old boss, and there's an opportunity for him to get the old job back. Well, when he goes home and tells his wife about it, she doesn't want to move. She said, I thought we'd grow old together here. I thought you'd be fixing the fence and doing the deck and all that stuff. But she says, if it is really important to you, I will do it. Why? Because I love you. So she's saying what we just said. She's expressing genuine love. If this is what you need, I will do it. And when you enter into a relationship such as that, you can develop a whole new lifestyle because you are always winning. And not over one another, but with one another. So, if you look at this circle of a relationship again, do you notice a change in it? What do you see? The big you. And see the little me there? That's a relationship that's going to be totally functional, because what we're doing now is we're taking and making our circle, it has a boundary. Those issues cannot get in and affect the relationship. What do we say? It's focus for success. It's relationship oriented. When issues are outside the circle of relationship, your mate is no longer the problem. It's not the complexity of a problem, everyone. It's how you handle it. Understanding each other is more important than understanding the problem. That doesn't mean the problem is automatically going away. It just loses its power. It loses its presence. It loses its control. So what we're going to do then in this circle of relationship, we're going to add adaptation. Adaptation is simply how we choose to relate to one another. It is an action that we bring. It's the environment of a marriage where adapting to one another is an act of love that demonstrates you're thinking of one another. Deliberate action today. Deliberate action today restores the spontaneous affection of the past. And in a little bit, I'm going to demonstrate to you the importance of reigniting the actions of the past, because what that's going to do is put the feelings of the past that we enjoyed so much before we really figured out who the real you was. And again, we're going to be living differently and far more successfully. So, remembering that it is focus for success, and it's not liking what I'm doing, so we're going to do that. So, this next illustration comes from a 50s movie, black and white. It's a really cool movie called The Best Years. And so there's a scene where the daughter, she's sitting on the bed, and mom and dad are over here, and they're in the bedroom, and the daughter, she's sitting on the bed, and she is just wound up tighter than a tick. She is so distressed, it's just kind of funny to see her. And she said, "You and mom and dad never had any problems." And mom looks up at the husband and says, "How many times did I tell you I hate you?" And he says, "Yeah, and how many times did I tell you we're all washed up? Let's get over this thing." Then she says, "How many times did we need to fall in love again with each other?" One of the best things I can say about my Sally and I, we fell in love with each other a lot of times. My kids can tell you that. A lot of times we've had to fall in love again. I'm going to tell you about 2 dates where we fell in love again. The thing about it is, mom and dad understood all too well what she was going through with her intended, what the daughters intended. The parents understood, see? And that's the thing, that's adapting to one another. And they adapted every time they needed to. That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, I can't count the times that Sally and I adapted to one another. I like to say that she tried to get rid of me 2 or 3 times. I just wouldn't leave. And then we'd fall in love again. That's the truth. I could tell you stories. I'm not going to do that. So the other thing that we bring adaptation, we're bringing commitment. This thing of commitment is so important. If you're going to succeed, you need to be committed to one another. And if you don't commit to this mate, you're going to have to commit to the next one or the next one. Somewhere along the line, you got to stop and commit. So, what commitment does, friends, is it rejects expected certainties for unexpected possibilities. You see the difference there? We have a lot of expectations in marriage, expectations of one another. Set them aside. And when the unexpected come up, you start living a real adventure. Because what happens is, commitment overcomes unrealistic expectations. Most of us enter into marriage with unrealistic expectations. We may not know, but the fact of it is, that's what we do. And once we give up, stop expecting this to happen, because most of the time it doesn't anyway. And whatever else is left really becomes a distinct adventure. This is a thing that I read years ago that kind of speaks to commitment. It says, desiring love is a fragile flame. It's burning bright for a springtime, maybe through the summer. But then there's a love we call committed love. It's a love that stays alive through the longest winter. In other words, it's just always there. Because, if you remember from last week, I said, most of the time in love is simply in lust. That's how we start out, in lust. It's fun, it's great, but it doesn't last. Commitment does. Commitment is hope filled with action. When you add caring and determination, you might be able to make things better than they are until you have time to make them better than they are. But see, you're committed through it, and when that issue isn't the centrality of everything. It's just better. So what we're doing is we're changing from me to you and then to we. But it's a process, and we simply have to go through it. Now, here's another scene from the movie The Notebook. And it's an excellent, excellent movie. And it really is telling the story of this couple's life. And they've had quite a time. And the family is sitting outside the convalescent home. And there's the kids, there's the grandkids with the dad and the mom. And they're having a great time talking. The only problem is that mom hasn't a clue who they are. She's got dementia. So the notebook part is that he reads that to her to see if he can't bring her back from the dementia. Now the kids, they mean well, but they're saying, Dad, come home. Mom doesn't know you. Mom doesn't know us. It would be sad. Come home, we need you. And what does he say? I can't do it. I can't do that. I live here. This is my home now. Your mom is my home. Now see, that's commitment in action. That's not based on a feeling that I don't feel like it today, or maybe I'll feel like it tomorrow. That commitment says, this is who I am, this is what I am, and this is my commitment to you. We're just staying here for the time being. So, during the change process, then, here's another thing we're going to do. We're going to bring intimacy. We're going to bring it. It doesn't happen automatically. Passionate intimacy is never perfect. It's not a destination, friends. It's a journey. It's about imperfect people in an imperfect world working toward perfecting their intimacy. It's a journey. It's a nice journey. We say that intimacy is a practice art. We practice intimacy. I make it my practice. Intimacy, by the way, symbolizes security, protection, comfort, and approval. I'm going to paraphrase a thing here that I read some years ago. It says it's not easy sometimes to know if you married the right or wrong person. What we do know is too many times people have the wrong ideas about marriage and what it takes to make that marriage happy and successful. Now, it may be possible you married the wrong person. That may be possible. But if you treat the wrong person like the right person, you will likely have married the right person after all. On the other hand, if you married the right person and treat that right person like the wrong person, you will certainly have ended up marrying the wrong person. So either way, it's more important for you to be the right person than it is to marry the right person. The bottom line is, if you married the right person and the wrong person, it's up to you. Love doesn't require perfection. Love accepts imperfection. And once we said, okay, you're imperfect, let's have some fun together, gosh, you can end up with a whole different way of living. So, intimacy can be physical, but it's primarily emotional. Are you beginning to see there's a difference? It's as much what we do as the way we feel. And that helps us transcend. So, here, intimacy is a sense of trust, that you can rely on the other person to follow through on what he or she says will be done. Now that's altogether different than just feeling good about somebody or something, isn't it? You're building trust. You're building a connection that is not easily broken, because when you give your word, it means something. When you show acts of caring that meet your spouse's most emotional needs, romantic love is triggered. But you see, there's an order. We get it backward. And when you switch it around, it makes quite a difference. Now, intimacy for a woman it's oneness with a healthy separation, and intimacy for a lady, fellas, listen to this, is generally expressed with more verbal communication. I don't know if you fellas noticed yet that ladies like words. She ever say to you, "Tell me what you're thinking"? And of course the guy says, "I'm not thinking anything," and it's kind of embarrassing, isn't it? Ladies, for a guy, intimacy is expressed more than in shared activities. Sally was my best friend. I liked doing stuff with her. I always thought that was kind of intimate, because we were always trying to do something. Now, this next section that I want to show you is something that, when I got a hold of that, I thought, well, now this is really kind of cool, because intimacy begins with courting. Courting for marriage, it begins there. It's a time-oriented process. So, you see how this thing is adding up here? These are all activities that are done when you're courting one another. First section, you're becoming best friends. The second section there is genuine affection. Here's where we separate from the world. You see, we're at pre-sexual bonding. I know that's not generally the rule. I understand that. But we can build on this. What this is designed to do is allow time for all infatuation to die. It gives you time to discover one's true nature. It tempers and develops proper love, spiritual attraction, and the motivation to change before marriage. Famous last words are, they'll change once we're married. How many of you discovered that's a truism? That just doesn't happen, doesn't it? Now, watch this. You see how we're adding to this? This is sexual intimacy, and instead of bonding, we are bonded. When it is done this way, the relationship is totally different. And that's one of the things that the world gets wrong, because, well, we're going to live together and see how it works. That's just dumb. It just doesn't work. Without commitment, without genuine intimacy, I don't care what you do. Now, this comes from another movie. And an adult son is talking to his mom. And he's living at home way too long than he should be. I mean, he's in his 30s or so. And it's pretty good, pretty cushy for him. Mom cooks, she does his laundry for him, But he's got himself a lady friend, and he's going to be moving out. And so, Mom says, "I'm going to miss you. I don't want to see you go, because you act as a buffer between me and your dad. So she says, at least when your dad's all moody and doing his thing, I have someone to talk to. Well, she's afraid when it's just her and her husband at home, she won't have anyone to talk to. And then not only that, she says, I don't even know if he likes me. Well, the primary bonding material of marriage is emotional intimacy. So the same time, effort, and attention that it took to court one another is the same time and effort that we need to extend to one another to maintain the relationship. Now, dating, courting one another, that's extending intimacy to keep the relationship safe, secure, healthy, and exciting. Now, notice what's going on here. If you can read sideways, you're going to see that all the things we did to court are still there. You see that? Every one of them is still there. The difference is now it's non-hierarchical. These things that won the courting episode are the things we maintain. They're just not done in a hierarchy. In other words, you could do these at any time. But they're all necessary all the time. You see the difference there? In other words, there are activities that can happen at any time, and they're just necessary if you want to keep that relationship thriving. Seems simple enough, doesn't it? And we forget some of the basics. So I want to take a minute to talk about 8 factors to building intimacy. We've touched on this already. Number 1, we choose to believe in the permanence of marriage. When we initiate these kind of relationships, make them permanent. I like to say when I stood in front of that minister, I did. My commitment was to that girl for all of her life. And with that girl, I committed a number of times. But always the same woman, see? It's always the same person. So you choose to believe in the permanence of marriage. You choose to trust each other. Because remember how important trust is in intimacy. What you say is going to be done. I can count on that. So we trust in each other. Fellas, women need trust. And ladies, men need to feel secure. You put those 2 items together, what you're going to do is you're going to have a balance of power and personal growth. Now, if we're going to build intimacy, another thing we can do is we develop the ability to change and increase our capacity to tolerate frustration. Anybody who's ever known Sally and I know that there could be plenty of frustration going on. And because my Sally would get frustrated at pretty near everything I laughed at. Am I telling the truth, Gail? My daughter and I would laugh at certain movies. My Sally would go to another room so she didn't have to. She did not understand why we laughed at that stuff. To me, it was pretty funny, but she didn't think so. So here's another thing I really want you to catch a hold of, and we're going to build on this a little bit. You develop the ability to live with the unchangeable. If you're going to face reality in marriage, Reality means facing problems. Some problems and personalities will never change. You all got that? They never will. So what we do is we try to learn the difference between temporary and permanent. When we were talking about doing this, I said, I guarantee I'll solve 69% of all your problems, or you get your money back. Pretty easy guarantee because there's no money involved, and I don't have any anyway. But 69% of the things we disagree on may fall into the permanent. The remaining 31% into the temporary, where negotiation is our problem-solving tool. The day my Sally passed away, we were disagreeing about an issue we had disagreed on all our married life. When it kind of built up one day, I said, I know you're not going to change your mind. I'm not going to change my mind. Let's agree to disagree. Once we did that, it was no longer a problem. We agreed to disagree. She never changed. I never changed. We just disagreed on it. It was always, this I can say always, about how we were going to, how do I use that term? It had to do with my kids, with those two and one who's passed away. They would come to me and say, Dad, I want to work, can I? And I always, sure. I never saw a problem with it. If they went to their mom, no way. Wasn't going to happen. I never understood her reasoning. She never agreed with me. Now, what happened was, them kids figured out that situation pretty quickly, and they stopped going to their mom. Let's just go to Dad. He'll say yes. He's a softy. I don't know if they remember this, but what I started doing was, I started saying, well, what do you think Mom will say? And if they agreed, Mom would probably say no. There was always a pretty good reason there. So then I would say no. Because things Sally had to add to it, they were good. They weren't, there's nothing wrong with it. I had to eliminate that as a problem. Because as I've shared last week, one of the things that I always felt was she was my wife. She was their mom's second. And I honored my wife first. Those guys still got in plenty of trouble, trust me. Plenty. I've deliberately forgotten most of it, but they were pretty good at it. That's all I can say. But you see what I'm saying? When we decided not to make it a problem, it wasn't. Then we could deal with it without all the emotions. Nobody had to be wrong. And I can say unequivocally, I raised three pretty cool people. I'm so proud of them I can hardly stand myself. They are simply great human beings. They've turned into marvelous parents, marvelous grandparents. That's it. All of that made it all worthwhile, but there was a lot of learning and growing in there. Now, when we talk about intimacy, I want you to catch a hold of this one, because we enjoy being friends. I always thought my Sally was my best friend. You see, I enjoyed her company. I did. I enjoyed hanging around her. We had some really fun times. She could get mad at me like you can't imagine. Well, maybe you can if you ever had your wife mad at you, but She was only 5'2", and boy, that was a lot of mad sometimes. But friendship is the most important ingredient of marriage. I was sharing here the other day with someone. I said, as fun as sex is, as great as that is, having sex, what do you do the rest of the time? You hear what I'm saying? If you're friends, then you're always got a cool thing going on all the time. And then that sexual union just adds to it. You enjoy. But we just say emphatically, being friends is the number one predictor of great sex. But get it the right order. You see what I'm saying? Get it in order. Maybe you heard of this fella. He thought his friends were in short supply, and he felt his dog was his only friend. He says to his wife, every man needs at least 2 good friends. So she bought him another dog. Another thing we do with our friend is we extend frequent affection. Listen to this. Affection is any act of kindness or attention that is non-sexual that can be given or received by anyone. It's an act that demonstrates you are thinking of the other person and that you care. Frequent affection prevents one another from taking each other for granted. That eliminates that. You just do that. I have a couple things that I insist on. One is dating, and we're going to talk about that and how important it is. And the other is hugging one another every single day. There is nothing that develops connection better than just taking the time to stop and hug one another. In our busy schedules, I understand, but listen, you've got time to hug. You make time for everything else. Make time for that hugging, because it just makes quite a difference. So, you plan regular dates or courting, because it maintains everything we've been talking about, every goal we have. You have to date, friends. You have to date regularly. I don't mean willy-nilly. I mean date every week. If you had time to date when you're courting, don't tell me you don't have time to date now. And if you're too busy to date, get unbusy. What dating does, it restores the spontaneity of the experience we had during our initial courting. It defines who we are. It requires definitive planning. I'm going to tell you about 3 dates. So, my Sally and I dated our kids. Every month, each one of my kids had a definitive date. It was just them. And so, I have one son who was in love, and he had a date, but it was our date night. And that little snot, he says to his mom and dad, I'm not going with you. I've got a date. Didn't matter. We have a date. Then he announces, I can give you 1 hour. Oh, thank you very much. We go down to Linwood, Washington, and the power is off down there. And we go into this steakhouse, and it's colder than you can imagine in there. The power's been off. It's kind of come back. They can't guarantee hot food. But we had our date. He still got to go on his date. But see, we didn't let anything get in our way. Another date, it's a Friday night. And my Sally, who was working full time because I was going to college and stuff, and she's mad at me. And to this day, I cannot remember what she was so upset about. I'm telling you, I had no idea. And at the time, I'm not getting it. And I don't think I wanted to get it. She gets frustrated with the whole thing. She says, I'm never going to talk to you again. And I thought, there's a good idea. I like that idea. Can we work on that? So then I said, well, fine. It's date night. Are you ready to go? Well, I'm not going anywhere with you. Well, she's talking to me, obviously. But I said, that's fine, because it was still a good idea. So I asked, are you going to go back on our agreement to date? Are you telling, is that what you're telling me? You're going to let this interfere with our date night? No, but I won't talk to you. Okay, fine. We go on our date, and we go to this hamburger place, a fast food kind of thing, that's like Dr. D's up here in Kingman. You know, when you go down the hill? Yeah, same thing. Good food. It's in Bremerton, Washington. You could see the ferries going across Puget Sound and stuff. And it wasn't long we were talking. And I don't know if I ever agreed with what she was upset about, but I did agree to make some changes because that was the proper thing to do. Because she was more important than the issue, and I can always change. Another date happened in 1976. I'm in college. I have $2 in my jeans. That's it. $2. That's basically all the money we have in the house right then. I have 3 teenage kids. So what we did was, and you can tell this is a while back, I bought 4 gallons of gas. I bought 2 cheeseburgers, 2 fries, and 2 Cokes. We took that lunch and we went down to Grand Avenue in Everett. And Henry Jackson had a mansion here. He was a senator. And Naginson was right next to him. And right here was a little park with a little bench on it. And we had our lunch together. We watched the sun go down over the Sound, over Whidbey Island, and the Olympic Mountains. Now, what we did, as you can tell, we created a memory. That's a fond memory. I could share another one you with that ended up so totally backward, had nothing to do with Sally and I, but I got to tell you, it's kind of a fond memory because it's all part of our living. Now, again, dating requires planning. Dating is not going out with your family. That's not a date. Dating is not taking your kids along. That's a family outing. Dating is just you two. Dating is not going to the movies. What can't you do in a movie? You can't talk. You can't communicate. Is it a good movie? That's not the point. You can't talk with one another. This next comes from a song I really like. I like it. It's called the Escape Song, and it's really, Do You Like Pina Colada? And so for a long time, I never knew what the words were. I just sang along with what I knew. So I took the time to find it out, and it just tells a marvelous story about what we're talking about. I was tired of my lady, and we'd been together too long, like a worn-out recording of a favorite song. So while she lay there sleeping, I read the paper in bed, and in the personals column, this is what the letter said. If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga and you have half a brain, if you like making love at midnight in the dunes of the Cape, I'm the love you've looked for. Write to me and escape. He says, I didn't think about my lady. I know that sounds kind of mean, but me and my old lady had fallen into the same old dull routine. So I wrote to the paper, and I took out a personal ad, and though I'm nobody's poet, I thought it wasn't half bad. Yes, I like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. I'm not much into health food, I'm into champagne. I've got to meet you by tomorrow and cut through all this red tape at a bar called O'Malley's, where we'll plan our escape. So I waited with high hopes. Then she walked into place. I knew her smile in an instant. I knew the curve of her face. It was my own lovely lady. And she said, "Oh, it's you." And we laughed for a moment, and I said, "I never knew that you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, and the feel of the ocean and the taste of champagne. If you like making love at midnight in the dunes of the Cape, I'm the love that you've looked for. Come with me and escape." They're caught in the rain, but I want you to notice the look in that girl's face. That getting caught in the rain has sparked something. She's got something on her mind. I like it. Dating actually restructures your brain. Research has proven that dating creates new pathways for speech, for hearing, and vision, which obviously enhances our ability to relate. Now, these new pathways multiply positive thoughts and memories, which leads to an even more exciting relationship. Do you think dating's a good idea? Brand new pathways. It's a proven fact. Wow, I'm running out of time, aren't I? I got too talkative. I want to do just one more. Looking again at our circle of relationship, we're going to add some other items. We're going to bring appreciation. That's simply relating to one another. Commitment is the power of appreciation. Communication is the tool of appreciation. So the greater the need for appreciation, the greater the need for communication. Communication, friends, doesn't have to be perfect to be effective. So we're going to bring communication. This isn't bad, it just isn't great. Let's practice communicating. Get your feet off the table. But they're communicating somehow. Next time I'll start here, where we're going to share with you some levels of communication, because there are levels. We start out with not much and we build our way up. But as we build our way up, we're building commitment, we're building affection, we're building all these items into one another. And some of us have been married for a long time. You do this and I guarantee there's a new life in your marriage. And why not? It doesn't have to be the same old, same old. One last thing I want to share with you. A wise man doesn't answer a multifaceted question with a yes or a no. A one-word reply is an issue for a kindergarten response that has no value or meaning. Here's our problem. We as two individuals might share similar feelings on an issue, yet we could end up arguing and develop bitterness simply because we chose a one-word response. That gets you nowhere. Guys, we do that all the time. And then we think we've communicated, and it just doesn't work like that. There's so much more to that. So I'm about maybe 3/4 of the way through, and if I don't quit, then I got a problem with the pastor, and he knows how to communicate when when it isn't going our way. So we're gonna stop with that. And I promised I'd give time for questions while I was doing this, and then I forgot. So any questions that you might have, we'll take a moment on the material. By the way, if you didn't get all the blanks filled in, we have an answer sheet where you can catch up, because I know sometimes I get going a little too fast, and it might be necessary.
Last week, if I can.
Yeah.
Last week, I got a quote that is in my brain now. Marriage is choosing the right partner to be incompatible with.
Yes.
That's embossed in my brain.
Good.
And then this week, it's love accepts imperfection.
Yes.
And love accepts imperfection. Well, who did that the best? Jesus.
Absolutely.
If we're to be like Jesus and mirror his image, then that's the goal.
And so salvation is moving from imperfection to perfection.
Amen.
And in the Christ, in Him we are perfect. That's a pretty good deal, isn't it?
It's a great deal.
I like what He says, I will remember your sins no more. And it doesn't matter what I remember. I just think about Him. He doesn't remember. That's really cool. I can see Him, God saying to one another, you see old Dick down there? He's a cool guy. He's never sinned. I'm like, whoa.
And when the Father looks down and he sees me, he doesn't see me anymore, he sees Jesus.
He sees Jesus in me. Now that's a dynamite communication. It's a dynamite connection. It's a miracle. Sure. He's accepted the imperfect. When we do that with one another,
There's the goal.
you are no longer the problem. Doesn't mean the problem goes away, but now, if I'm not assessing blame, gives me that much more power to fix whatever might be wrong. And if it's non-fixable, agree to disagree. It's okay. Because I'm going to show you, if they let me come back, we are going to agree, disagree, that's 69% of the time, because we are wired differently. And that wiring is permanent wiring. The wiring never changes. You with me? I know that can be disappointing, ladies. That guy isn't going to change, but you can understand him. You can. And once you get there, life is just different. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to convince you that if we take these principles in hand and we practice them, your life together and your life with everyone you come into contact with is going to be different. Not who is right, what is right. Good? Hey, thanks for your attention, guys. And sorry I got all excited and ran too long, but I'm gonna beg the pastor for an extra week. Let me pray for you before you go. So, Father, thank you for these folks who are here tonight. Thank you for their attention. And bless them with one nugget from tonight, that they're different. And you do that, and we'll thank you in the name of Jesus. We say amen and amen.